All right, everyone. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out, and I'm excited to say we finally have a good MCU movie since Spider-Man.
Hey, it's been a long time, man. Spider-Man was a while ago. I was at the beginning of phase four. We are into phase five, and we finally have something that we can be excited about. So,
Yeah,
oh,
I honestly think, in I guess general impressions, but if I have to start off, I honestly think this is the best Guardians of the Galaxy film we've gotten comparing to all three of them.
I said
right.
the same thing when I saw it last night, and I was like, "Am I being crazy saying that?" Like, it's obviously recency bias, but like, no. After I've had a chance to sit with it, I'm standing by it, and I want to watch it again to really confirm. But
I
I
actually
agree.
watched it a second time. I just came out
Oh,
of the
dang.
theaters to watch it. That's how much I love this movie.
Oh
So
shoot,
you watched it a
it's
second
so
time
good. I need to
today?
watch it again.
Literally, but I
Oh,
saw it in
that's
3D this time. So,
Oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, yeah, no, I loved this. I absolutely love this movie, and it is probably the best of the trilogy. If I'm being for real, because the story, everything about this movie, not everything. I think the first movie might have some things over this third movie, but I think as a whole, the whole overall picture, I feel like the third movie has it as that's the best in the trilogy.
okay, so the way we're gonna go over this is we're gonna have a little bit of a structure. So we're gonna start off talking about the story first. Then we're gonna talk about performances because that was something that stood out for me in this film. Next is gonna be the action because James Gunn has an interesting action style. And then
Mhm.
finally, we're gonna talk about music and a little bit more about James Gunn because again, James Gunn's just an amazing director, and it's unfortunate that this is gonna be his last time with the MCU. So
I
yeah, let's get this
know, but
started. Oh, sorry.
I mean,
no,
it's
it's just
unfortunate
saying like end
for
of an era
Marvel, but
for
fortunate
Marvel fans.
for DC. We'll see. I don't know.
I know, dude. He was showing off in this film. I was like, please save something for DC right now because this is too good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's go with the story. What are you guys' thoughts on the story overall?
Um, Phenomenal. I think it was great to focus on Rocket's background too. And it doesn't feel like weird or inauthentic to just like put Rocket in the spotlight because his traumatic background has been hinted at before a couple times, right? We know
Mhm.
he's had
Mhm.
issues and he's said himself before, like, I'm not a raccoon, I don't know what I am, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of giving him a moment to shine, like helped everyone have their own moments to shine too, because, going into this, all the Guardians are kind of learning about themselves and coping with their own things as they try to save Rocket. So I think there was a lot of heart. Like, I think there was more drama. Like, of all
Hmm.
the Guardians films, I think there was more like dramatics involved.
Yeah, this
Yes.
was definitely much more dramatic, which was very interesting to see because, as much as like I mean, speaking for myself, James Gunn, I really enjoy him, but I really only know him through the lens of like the superhero genre. And so most of the stuff that I've seen him do has been pretty irreverent. It's been like very like heavy on the humor. It's been like
Yeah.
for laughs and all of that stuff, including the first two Guardians films. We see his Suicide Squad film, and then Peacemaker as well. Like it's been primarily like the jokes are what comes first. It's not necessarily um the feels. But then with this movie, it was definitely interesting because compared to all of his previous, at least his superhero work, this one was very heavy with the feels. Like you could see the 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 emotional strings being pulled with this film, and I think that
Yeah.
that was a very encouraging thing to see, and I think that's probably what places this movie above the other movies in the trilogy. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it for that reason.
He handled it like a proper send off. Like he knew this
Hmm.
was his final chance to show us what the Guardians were all about. And he was showing off, honestly. Like he was doing the damn thing, giving every single character a moment to shine and basically just kind of making it okay for us to let go of not just the Guardians, but like the MCU kind of I think there's like a lot of there's a little bit of like a parallel there of like, oh, you know, to Peter, like, you know, you're treating every girl like a lily pad. You should just learn how to swim. You know, it's like
Yeah.
maybe some of us were treating the MCU movies as our lily pads of a burst of serotonin in our lives, and we thought we
Yeah,
needed the MCU to
Yeah.
survive. But now I feel like, nah, I'm all right. Like, you know, I'll be okay like with whatever else
with whatever
comes down the
happens.
pipeline
Yeah.
as far as superhero movies and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, OC, that you brought up Peacemaker, because I do feel like Peacemaker, it does have a lot of heartfelt moments. It's a dramedy, so there was a lot of drama, but for sure with Guardians, and I'm guessing because of the way we see Guardians, it's very like, you know, they're kind of these kind of goofy, you know, kind of failures but funny kind of people. To get more dramatic and really feel heart moments was very a good take for this, and it really made us look at these characters in a better light, as well as for the actors.
Mhm.
But the only thing I
Yeah.
will hold on in terms of, if there's any criticisms I would have, it's like minor criticisms, and they're very, very minor. I did feel like the whole Peter wanting to see his grandpa thing was a little bit forced. Like, it wasn't like it didn't ruin the film, but it was a little bit like, I wish there was a little bit more than just like, oh, by the way, you haven't seen your grandpa in a long time. You should go visit him. So I was a little bit like, eh. And I did feel like the villain, I wish there was more story to him. I mean, we get his point, but I wish there was a little bit to it. But besides that, for a Guardians movie, because we have to look in the context of the Guardians movie, this definitely was a more darker but more mature
Yeah.
tone to it, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I think Guardians and like just James Gunn projects in general, they're very character focused. Like,
Yeah.
of course, like the plot makes sense, the world building's always great, but we haven't seen like a director treat a Marvel character with this kind of reverence in a long time, or ever, maybe. I think like James Gunn really loves and appreciates his characters because like
Mhm.
really no one was left behind. Like no one looked, you know, exceeding. They're all cringe fail, like you said. They're all kind of dumb, but like no one is exceedingly unlikable. Like really, like everyone in the film, like you really love the Guardians by the end of the film, and like it's just a testament to how well written each one is. I think if the main focus is on a character, you know, and as long as like the plot like makes sense to me, if we like the characters and we care about them, like that to me is like,
A
I don't
win.
know, that's like what I value in a story like this, especially because ragtag team is such a like not a tired trope, but it's used a lot. Like we see it a lot. But to like still like be able to stand out and like make a good ragtag team type movie, like that's special.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
totally agree. I definitely yeah, to add on to that, I really think that you could definitely see the appreciation he has to these characters. But I guess the next thing we can go to is performances, because this to me is the one that stood out a lot. Where
Yeah.
it's funny because we kind of mentioned this before with the MCU having all these professional actors, but we don't really get to see them really go out. But this
Mhm.
time it was like, for example, oh my God, Zoe Zendaya, like her
Saldana,
performance.
yeah.
Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, Zoe Zanella. Her performances this movie was just, it was top notch. Like I really felt that moment where they're trying to go and they're gonna, what was it, the plan, and he's all like, oh, it's a face off, and she just went really hard like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, I could really
Yeah.
feel it. And then even Chris Pratt, his like balance performance was like, that was even top notch. So it's like,
I want to say this is maybe Chris Pratt's best performance outside of like the Lego movie. Like
Outside of
I
the
think
Lego movie.
the Lego movie, he's a great performance. I think this is his best dramatic performance.
Mm,
Truly.
mm.
Like, and it's funny that like those are your standouts, right? Zoe Saldana and Chris Pratt.
yeah,
Again, for me,
But like you can name so many. Yeah, go ahead. It's just crazy
Chukwudi,
because you can
the-
name so many.
yeah, the guy who played the villain, Chukwudi,
the Nigerian dude.
yeah,
Yes.
Iwuji.
He was a good
Mhm.
Chukwudi
performance
Iwuji,
too.
Nigerian. Oh man, he was brilliant because
He was.
he's apparently a Shakespearean stage actor, and
Oh,
like
okay, that makes sense.
Oh,
like,
I can see that. Classically trained. Must be.
yes, absolutely. He did such a great job.
He, He was a good
And
performance, but personally to me, I guess me being Nigerian, I was just thinking, oh, he's just an angry Nigerian in space.
In space.
That's what I got from it.
well,
Like, bring me the raccoon. I must have.
Yeah,
this
literally.
raccoon."
Though even the part where he's all like, when they're asking what you do with him, he's like, kill it. Like, duh. Like the way he said it, I was like, that's so Nigerian, right?
are you
there.
dumb? Kill it. Yeah, no, he's great. He definitely seems classically trained. And I think when I say like this Guardians movie is like the best of them, like I'm factoring in that performance because when we think about the villains in the past two movies, he is
Oh,
the
yeah.
strongest villain.
He
He's
is.
like he just
Absolutely.
it's a big I'm him moment in the beginning, like of all those like horrible cruel things he was doing. I was like, he's that villain. And he's not
Yeah.
even necessarily stronger than Thanos, but emotionally, like his ethos, the way he portrayed like this kind of like eugenic psycho character makes him memorable. And like
Mm.
that equates to like, you know, you could be like a super strong villain, but if you're a compelling villain, like that's
And
just as good.
And this film did something very, very interesting because a lot of the issues that you get when you have these shared universe superhero films is not every movie can be like a world-ending threat, right? But James Gunn was able to create a world-ending threat in a way that was like contained in this Guardian story,
Mhm.
and it didn't
Mhm.
necessarily give you that question of, oh, what's going on with why didn't
Why do we care about that?
Captain
Yeah.
America show up, or why didn't somebody else, like why isn't the rest of the world talking about this? But he was able to create that still world-ending threat and give us that
Yeah.
same emotional impact. It was
He
brilliant.
was quietly building and ending worlds, you know, under everyone's nose. And you
Mhm.
know, Lil Wayne said it best, real G's move in silence like lasagna. And that's what this man did. But so I have two really stand-up performances that I have to call out. And first is like Karen Gillan as Nebula has been
Yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
bringing the game as Nebula since the beginning.
Mhm.
Another reason why I like this Guardians film like the most is because in the beginning, like Nebula is a very, you know, a little bit generic in the like, oh, I hate you and I'm a horrible villain. Even though she did have like her moments of like familial trauma between Thanos and Gamora, just seeing the character growth and her arc has been super impressive. Like she's now like one of my favorite MCU characters for sure. And like she looks great. She has a super cool design. You know, the way she was using the nanotechnology and like some parts of her body, like her performance is great. She's awesome. And then I mean, we can't not talk about Bradley Cooper as Rocket
Oh,
Raccoon.
yes. Yeah,
That
that's
has to
true.
be one of the best
That is.
voice acting jobs of all time. Like he was wailing in like, you know, in the pivotal scene where, you know, spoilers, all his friends die, all of them. Actual like
Exactly.
full body wails. Like I would hate to be in the studio seeing that because I would feel some type of way, but he really brought that and he owned that performance where like it definitely makes sense that the movie is about him. Like he brought it. So yeah, just to call out his performance, he was amazing. But everyone else, like Palm Clementif, and Dave Bautista, like everyone had a moment to shine.
Mhm.
And that's also a testament to not just good writing, but good directing,
Yep.
that he's able to pull these really great performances out of actors who haven't been considered, like, you know, they're not household names. They're not the first person you think of, like, as far as like dramatic performances, but he's pulling these performances out of them in like a really great way.
Yeah.
Even
I was gonna say
somebody-
this.
Yeah,
I was gonna say this for later, but even like for example, because the villain is from Peacemaker, and then there was like they had that one girl who was also from Peacemaker as well. She was playing one of the I think she was playing one of the henchmen, and she was screaming. Like even that performance was a nice performance.
That was
where you have
super
her
funny.
yelling,
Like her shrieking. She wasn't just screaming. She was just like, that was his
Yeah,
wife, by the way.
exactly.
James Gunn's
So
wife.
it's like, oh, that's his wife.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
just
man,
for me, I was
the more
like,
you
she's the
know.
girl from Peacemaker, but
Yeah,
either
she's
way,
awesome.
but
I love her.
yeah, that's interesting. But point is,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like again,
Great
he just knows how to
performances
pull
all
out good
around.
performances regardless.
Yeah, even
And yeah.
newcomer with Will Poulter
Yeah, Adam
as Adam
Warlock, I was about to
Warlock.
say.
Yeah, he did a great job, I think. Just as this like everybody has like their own, image of Will Poulter, and it's cool to see him in this like superhero role all beefed up.
Yeah.
But he still is that like Will Poulter that people like know and like,
Yeah.
are
Like a
familiar
bit
with.
of a himbo. Yeah.
Yeah,
A hundred
exactly.
percent. And that
Exactly.
character, as much as I love him, I know a lot of people gripe like, oh, he seems kind of like a shoehorned in character. I mean, I don't really know anything about the comics, but like he's still like he made a place for himself with his performance. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he
he
did a
was
great job. Yeah.
completely likable. It was honestly fun
Yeah,
seeing everyone on screen.
for sure, for sure. I guess the next thing would be action. And I have to put this up because I feel like James Gunn is underrated when it comes to action because I love how he does his action style where it's like a zoom in like kind of camera and it's like you can see everything going on and then it's like they zoom in at certain points but then they close up and it's just the reason why I like it so much is like you can tell like the actors themselves they're not really doing anything really impressive, but the way he just has the camera in and it's not too like it just makes it look
Mhm.
cooler than what it is. So I'm just like
It's
to
very
me,
stylish. I know. I love, and it's funny to quote the movie, like, did that look cool? That's very meta because I know James Gunn was
Yeah.
running circles around these other directors doing his coolest shots in this film. Like it's very meta for them to be saying those things because a lot of the shit looked cool.
it
Yeah.
And
did.
it's like I
Yeah.
love that scene. I know you're talking about the big action sequence where the big action sequence where everyone's involved for the first time
Yes.
in the whole film. I
Yeah.
love that scene, and I also love the smash cut to them just like once they're done with that, they just like completely like just walking. They're like back to business. Like I
I
love
know
that.
it's
They
so
just like
awesome.
completely straight back to business. Like that was pretty sick. But yeah, the action was great.
Yeah. I think again with these movies, even though they're superhero movies, they're also action. So it's like a lot of
Mhm.
times they just do the bare minimum, but he always goes beyond, which I love. So I really appreciate that. But what about Yossi? Any thoughts about the action?
It was great. I have
No
no
complaints.
No
complaints. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
the action. The action, even just like what you were talking about with the like slow motion zoom ins to like certain characters flying through the air,
I know.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like, yeah, it was so well done. So well done. Yeah, no complaints.
Even Kraglin and Cosmo had their moment too.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, yeah,
Mhm.
everyone
It
had
was-
a great moments. Great moments.
So I guess next we gotta talk about music because Guardians always got music, and again, it never fails to deliver. I feel like I have to look at the soundtrack now. It's like every time I watch a Guardians, it's like I need to listen to the
Yes.
music, figure out the soundtrack because that's what was in my
Mhm.
head the whole time. But
Hmm.
I think what makes the music really good is just they know how to. It isn't kind of like it's sort of like Baby Driver where it plays within the movie, but they know how to do it in a way where it's not too distracting. Like it really fits perfectly.
It's not distracting because I think it's integral to the storytelling.
Mhm.
I know in the first film, it was kind of a nostalgia trip because it was kind of used mostly to establish that Peter Quill was snatched in the 80s, right? So all his music is
Yeah.
like 80s music, da da da. And like it's also used to establish that like, oh, like we're not just any superhero, we're fun superheroes, we're a fun superhero film. So like music, music, music. And like that's fine. It was done really well then. But I think this third Guardians film, Guardians Volume 3, used it the most masterfully, the most artistically, because in the beginning, the whole scene, the whole movie kicks off with Rocket listening to I'm a
Oh
Creep,
yeah.
which is a very melancholy song, right? And at the end, he's listening to Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine, ringing in the 2000s, right? We were in the 90s, now we're in the 2000s, which in my opinion was like a more optimistic era to begin with. But I love that trope, like book ends like so perfectly, like well done. To me is just like that's just so like fun to see in any kind of media.
Mhm.
I might be like a dissenting voice here, but
Ooh.
I feel like the music is one of the areas where the first movie, at least for me, wins over with this third movie. Whenever I think back to that first Guardians movie, the soundtrack is the thing that I always like remember. Like it's so memorable for me specifically, just like watching the movie with the music attached to it. And I like for me, every like song was like, oh, this was like, it felt perfect in its moment. However, with this third movie, it felt a little bit like, I don't know, it wasn't as memorable for me. The song choices weren't as memorable. They weren't as impactful. I understand the symbolism that you're talking about with like the
That's
bookends
subjective.
of the of the
I'm sorry,
movie.
but No
Yeah,
Sleep
yeah,
Till
yeah. No, no,
Brooklyn,
no.
when they're about to fight, I mean, that's very Rocket. I mean, he has a New York accent. It's
But
so
the first
perfect.
movie had Jackson 5. Like, come on. I'm just saying. Like,
This movie had Earth, Wind, and Fire, so it had Heart, it had
for
Crazy on You by
me,
Heart. Like, chill.
the first one killed it on the soundtrack. I can't even like
I think
it's
it was.
that's
I know,
me. That's
but
me though. That's me.
I'm
That's what I'm
saying
saying.
I'm saying it was more artfully done in this film. I'm not saying whether one song is better than the other song. I'm just saying
I
that
mean,
these scenes were rung in by songs that were perfect for each scene.
hey,
Yeah.
maybe I'll just have to go back and rewatch the first movie to see if
We'll have to
the
rewatch the
music
third
is
one too.
as artistic. But all I remember is I years later still think about the soundtrack from that first movie, and I don't know if I'm gonna
True,
be
you're
thinking
not
about the soundtrack
wrong.
from this movie in that same way a couple years down the line. So
I think the soundtrack made that movie, the first Guardians film, viral. Like the first Guardians film was a moment, remember? Like people were making like SNL sketches about how crazy, wildly successful the film was. So you're not wrong. I think the first one, the music is iconic for sure. I'm still thinking about like the perfect bookends in this one when you go from, like Creep, which is a song about feeling
I'm
completely
sorry,
alienated.
I hate
and
that song.
I know. Okay. All right.
I get that it works in the story.
He feels
I
alienated.
don't like
They
that
all
song.
do. Okay, so
But
we
that's
got to the
me.
bottom of it.
Oh yes, because the
I
very
love
first
Creep
song.
and I love Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine. I love music, all right? So I think all of them
I love music
the music
too.
in all
I
the
just,
films are really
I
great.
think I have, it's okay. It's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah, but yeah, with Crystal, I do agree that I feel like the music did play a lot with the story this time.
Funny.
So I really did enjoy that. Again, I might have to rewatch the first one in terms of the music choices, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. And even me, every time I listen, and even the second one, there were some songs I was like, oh, I like the song. I'm gonna go look it up. So that's how I feel with the Guardians.
Music has always been great in all the films. And I know I have good music taste, so I stand by what I've been saying.
So yeah, I guess any like other thoughts since we kind of went over our categories.
As far as categories go, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, I think that it just one of the things that I really walked out of this movie feeling. I went into this movie, honestly, I went into this movie with the hopes of like, I just hope this movie doesn't make me angry. Like that was what I was like banking on, was just like, I don't want this movie to make me mad. And like halfway through the movie, I'm like, is this actually gonna be like good? Like, is this actually gonna be a good movie? Like, am I actually gonna be happy about this movie? And then like the movie ends and I'm just like, oh man, it feels so good to walk out of an MCU movie like in these recent years, to be able to walk out of an MCU movie and just be like, I really, really loved that movie. Like that movie was amazing. That movie was fantastic. Like this, I think, is definitely like, I
agree.
Yeah, we haven't had this since at least like Spider-Man No Way Home, and then before that, really realistically Endgame. You can argue Shang-Chi.
But you can say Wakanda Forever if you want to put it in. But to me, Wakanda
you can
Forever...
you can argue Wakanda Forever. You can argue Shang-Chi, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. Even though a lot of people still have some gripes with that movie still as well. But yeah, like a lot of the recent movies, like Ant-Man and like Eternals, and just everything that we've been having to deal with recently as like, not even just Marvel fans, but like superhero fans in general, has been stressful. Like it's been like, oh man, You're just having to sit through like and pay money for disappointment after disappointment. And so now to be able to enjoy something,
Mhm.
it just feels really good. It just feels really
I
good.
yeah. I know you said earlier that everything about like this story is very self-contained, right?
Yeah.
I feel like because you mentioned Endgame, Volume 3 is the end game of the Guardians trilogy. Like it really
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
crescendo, like his magnum opus. Even like all his superhero films and all his superhero projects, like this to me has to be my favorite. I'm considering like Suicide Squad and like Peacemaker too. Like
Mm,
this one really does feel like a proper send off, and like this is like, okay, this is me, this is my piece, this is the last thing I have to contribute to the Guardians, and like he really treated it with the utmost care.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
and I just have to respect that.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. Much things, everything what we both said. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
if
DC.
anything, yeah, DC is the future now.
What? Yes. Mhm.
But yeah, if in the comments, let us know about your opinions about this film. Are you gonna feel sorry now that MCU is basically now done, since James Gunn is probably the last person who can make a good movie here? And don't forget to like and subscribe.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.